Hello everyone and welcome to my true crime channel. Today I'm going to be discussing the very bizarre and the very mysterious disappearance of Richey Edwards of the Welsh band the Manic Street Preachers. Now, if you haven't heard of them, the Manic Street Preachers were a massive band here in the 90s. They are based in Wales. They are Welsh, originally from Wales, and they were huge. They were a real big indie band back in the 90s, and at the time that the lead frontman, Richey Edwards, went missing, they were getting to the height of their fame, the height of their careers in their band, when he mysteriously disappeared, bizarrely, at the rock and roll age of 27. Now, Richey Edwards disappeared sometime between February the 1st and February the 15th in the year 1995. Now, he was last seen somewhere near the Severn Bridge, which sadly is known as a suicide spot, a spot where people tragically decide to end their lives. His car was found near this bridge, and it has often since been believed that he took his own life. Personally, I don't feel he took his own life. I feel either he was abducted or he came to some kind of harm, he was murdered, or I think he wanted to disappear, and I'm hoping, praying, that he's living his best life somewhere and that he is still alive and that he's not dead. So, the Manic Street Preachers formed in the year 1989, and I just want to read you a quote from Richie about the band. He said, "We are the most original band in the last 15 years. We don't want to do anything that's been done before." So they were quite groundbreaking at the time they came around in the late 80s, early 1990s. And by the mid-1990s, they'd really gained traction. They'd got a lot of fans. They had hits in the top 10 in the chart here in England and the UK. And they were really becoming a huge band when Richie mysteriously disappeared. Not a lot is known about his disappearance. There are theories, like I said, that mainly that he took his own life. Personally, as I said, I don't believe that. But the story of his disappearance that I'm going to go into now is a very bizarre one. Now, at the time that Richie disappeared, the band, the Manic Street Preacher, the band that he was the front man of, were due to go to America on a promotional tour. Now, this was a really big thing for the band, so the fact that Richie disappeared, knowing this was coming up, makes it all the more strange. You'd think that he would have wanted to have gone to America to participate in this promotional tour. It would have got the band a lot more fans. It would have got them potentially famous in America. And us Brits, especially in the music industry, trying to crack America is a big thing. Really, we've only had Adele and the Beatles really crack America. Most of our singing artists are only really famous here within the UK and often within Europe. So for a band like the Manic Street Preachers, who were an indie band, to break America would have been huge for them. So the fact that Richie disappears with his promotional tour up and coming makes this case even more bizarre. So on the day that Richie disappeared, the band had been staying at the Embassy Hotel in London. Now, this was in the lead up to flying out to America for the promotional tour. And there is some speculation that a woman had been staying with Richie, a woman from Israel, the night before he disappeared. Now, apparently there is rumour mill that he said that she could take his passport because he wasn't going to be needing it anymore. Now, apparently she doesn't take the passport, but the fact he offered it to her is all very bizarre. This woman in Israel has never been able to be tracked down, and what part she may have played within his disappearance, or whether she knows more about his disappearance, is very hard to know because she's never been tracked down. Another very interesting point about this case is in the lead up to Richie's death, he'd been withdrawing on a daily basis for about 2 weeks, £200 a day. Now, eventually, I think he'd had around £2,000 to £3,000 that he'd withdrawn, that he had on him the day that he leaves the Embassy Hotel in London, which was the 1st of February 1995. So Richie is known to have then driven to Cardiff and gone back to his flat. Certain items were left at the flat that he may have needed, so that's always been seen as quite strange. He was filmed going over a bridge in Wales, and the timestamp, because I think you're filmed as you go over this particular bridge in Wales, it was always thought that he'd crossed at around 2 in the afternoon because of the timestamp, but I think it took about 2 or so years for the police to bloody figure out that it was a 24-hour clock. He hadn't passed at 2 in the afternoon, he'd passed at 2 in the morning. So that information was always wrong. and that is quite vital because it could have hampered the police investigation. Now, going back to the woman that was meant to have been with Richie in his hotel room the night before he disappeared, which would have been January the 31st of 1995. Apparently her name is Vivian. Not a lot more is known about her other than that she was from Israel, and it's been highly speculated by Welsh people ever since, and there is quite a rumour mill within the country of Wales that Richie escaped the pressure of his life as a famous person in the UK, flew out to Israel, and that he's there living his best life. I hope that's true. If it's true, it would be really difficult for his family and friends to know that he didn't want to be here anymore, that he wanted to get away. But he had been known to be very down. He'd been struggling with his mental health. He was known to be on Prozac. That's why I think a lot of people think he took his own life, especially as his car was found by the Severn Bridge, which, as I've explained earlier in the video, is known as a suicide spot where people tragically take their own life. But did he leave the car there on purpose? Did he stage his disappearance, which is what I believe has happened here, to make it look like he took his own life? Is that really what's happened here? Now, something that came out years down the line after Richie disappeared is that as a child, I don't know if this came from his sister or family members or friends of his school days, but he was really interested, like myself, in missing people, in people disappearing, how they disappeared, why they disappeared. It was something, a subject that he was really fascinated by, just like me. I've been fascinated in missing people cases for well over 20 years. And was it something that he knew so much about that he could successfully stage his own disappearance? So something else, a major thing in this case, as I'd said earlier in the video, when Richie drove back to Cardiff and went back to his flat, his home, he dropped off a couple of vital bits of information, vital possessions that shouldn't have been left behind. Had he been flying to America for this promotional tour, or had he been going off to Israel or some other country or place within the UK to live his best life? Now, the items that he left behind were his passport and his wallet. Now, that's really concerning because if he left behind his passport, how did he get abroad? Had he obtained a fake passport? Did he no longer need the wallet? If he'd got a new identity, he wouldn't need the bank cards that were in the wallet. That's personally what I believe. I could be wrong, but if he'd gone back out from the flat and intended to go somewhere or visit someone or buy something in a shop, why would he have left his wallet behind? Most men always have their wallets on them. So it is a really weird point, but could it be it was because he was trying to stage his disappearance and maybe make it look like there'd been foul play, or that he took his own life? I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but personally, my theory here is that Richie Edwards staged his own disappearance. Now, as I said, it was the 1st of February that Richie drives from London, the Embassy Hotel where he'd been staying with one of his bandmates, back to Cardiff. Now, as I've said, there was a timestamp of him going over a bridge to cross into Wales from England at 2:55 a.m. in the morning. Now, this is the 1st of February, so as he's crossing, we're going into the 2nd of February. 5 days later, after he really officially disappears, I'd say on the 2nd of February, he is taken to numerous places within Wales by a taxi driver. Now, if that's true, he was obviously not dead and still alive 5 to 6 days after he disappears. Now, that's not the only witness report. There are other witnesses' reports of seeing him in and around the Cardiff area, and these all are at least a week after he disappears. Now, whether the police ever followed them up, whether these people didn't make their reports till years down the line, I'm not sure of the dates and times that these witnesses made these reports, but they clearly weren't followed up because he was never found. So Richie's car was found 2 weeks after he disappeared on the 15th of February, parked near to this Severn Bridge, which, as I said, sadly is a place where people take their own lives by jumping off the bridge. Now, it was mainly believed that was what had happened to Richie. As I've said, personally, I don't think he took his own life. But what's interesting to note is the car park attendant that found Richie's car on the 15th of February noted the first time they'd seen the car was the 14th of February, the day prior, which is Valentine's Day. Now, if that's true, that means that Richie or someone didn't leave the car there till the day before it was found abandoned, the 14th of February, but that's 2 weeks after Richie leaves London. It's 13 days after he crosses into Wales from England. What was he doing in those 13 days? He wasn't staying at his flat, he'd disappeared. So there's quite a weird period of time here of at least 2 weeks where he disappears. No one knows where he is, but he's seen by a taxi driver who drives him to a few different locations. He's seen by 1 or 2 other members of the public, you know, at bus stops and in and around the local area. But yet his car isn't abandoned until 2 weeks after he disappears. Now, if he was trying to stage his disappearance, wouldn't he have done it nearer the time that he drove back into Wales? Or was it that he was contemplating the disappearance? Was he making preparations? Was he getting any fake documents that he may have needed? Was that why it took 2 weeks to abandon the car? Or am I wrong in my theory, and that Richie come to harm, and that a potential murderer dropped his car off at the bridge to make it look like a suicide? There are so many theories as to what happened to Richie here. It's really hard to know which one is the most plausible. So as I've said, it was known that Richey Edwards had suffered from mental health problems and that he was on Prozac. And in 1991, the band, the Manic Street Preachers, the band that he was part of, gave an interview to NME. Now, in this interview, it's very weird. Richie carved something into his arm, and I just want to make sure that I get it right as to what was carved into his arm. He carved the word or the phrase "for real." So that's the letter, or sorry, the number 4 and then real. So for REAL. And he carved, I'm guessing with a penknife, it into his arm. So apparently the injury was so bad and it was bleeding all over the place. I think the person that was interviewing the band was horrified. I think the rest of the band were horrified. And not only that, Richie then ends up going to hospital because of the injury that he'd caused himself. Richie was probably the most colourful character of the Manic Street Preachers. He was certainly the most sort of respected in a way. He was seen as the front man, even though it was 50% him and one of the other band members writing the lyrics. So he wasn't really the main front man in that he wrote all the lyrics. He was probably the most charismatic member of the band, and I think that's why he was always seen as the lead man, and still is, even though he's been missing for all these years. Something to mention is Richie's sister and Richie's family claimed at the time that he wasn't the sort of person that would take his life. Now, they could be right about that, but a lot of the time, people that take their lives, they put on a persona of a happy person, and they always try to make everybody else happy, and they're always laughing and joking, not all the time, but sometimes, and that's to mask their own feelings of sadness, inadequateness, helplessness, worry, anxiousness. And because of that, they often put on a persona that they're really happy, and they try and make other people happy to hide their own sadness because they don't want people to know. So could it be that Richie had been so depressed that he did take his own life, but he'd hidden it so well from his own family that they didn't know? I mean, really here, in my opinion, there's only a few options. He either took his own life, he went missing of his own accord because he couldn't handle the fame of being in the band anymore, or he came to harm. I think it's 3 options here, but personally my view is that he disappeared because he wanted to. Now, tragically, Richey Edwards was declared officially dead in the year 2008 because he'd never been seen since he disappeared in 1995. He'd never used his bank accounts. There was no trace of him ever again from the time that he disappears in Wales in the February, and he was declared dead in 2008. Now, he could have been declared dead a few years prior to that, but his family didn't want him to be. They were obviously, like every missing person's family, clinging to the hope that he'd one day be found alive. Now, something to note is, according to Richie's mother, or mum, or in America, mom, although I can't ever pronounce it the way you American guys say mum. I don't know why, we just can't get our heads around calling it mom here in the UK. But anyway, Richie's mum said that he'd phoned her just before he was due to fly out to America with his other bandmate to say that he was dreading it. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go to America. Now, his mum didn't really let on why he didn't want to go to America, but the fact that he didn't want to go to America, in my opinion, makes the theory that he disappeared of his own accord even more plausible. Perhaps the other bandmate wanted to go there to do the promo to get the band more sort of exposure out in the States, because America's such a big market for the music industry. Perhaps the band or the other band member really wanted to go, but Richie didn't, and maybe Richie didn't really want to tell the other band member. Is that what happened? So the band member that was staying with Richie at the hotel, the Embassy in London, was his bandmate James Dean Bradfield. Now, James Bradfield was the last person officially to see Richie alive at the hotel. They checked into adjoining rooms and they'd planned on hitting the town and going out with each other later that night. Now, later that night, James knocks on Richie's door and says, "Hey, mate, are you up for going out?" And apparently he didn't feel like it anymore. Richie said he didn't want to go out, that he was going to have a night in, and their night out on the town is scrapped. Now, that's something interesting to note because, as I said earlier in the video, a woman from Israel is supposedly meant to have spent the night with Richie in the hotel. And is that why he didn't want to go out with his friend, the other bandmate, that night? Because he'd pulled, or he had a woman friend visiting? Maybe it was a girlfriend he hadn't told the other bandmate about. Is that why he didn't want to go out? And why is there so much mystery that surrounds this woman from Israel? Why have the police never been able to track her down, even after all these years? So the next day, the other band member, James, waits patiently in the hotel lobby or the hotel's reception for Richie to appear. When he doesn't appear, James grows concerned and asks the hotel staff if they can go up to Richie's room just to check it out. Upon entering the room, it was immediately apparent that Richie wasn't there. So upon entering the room, James, the other band member, and the staff member of the hotel enter the room to see that Richie isn't there, but a few things were strange. He'd left a bath full of water, like he was going to have a bath but didn't get in it. And there were some other personal items, and I just want to make sure that I get them all right, so I'm just going to read them to you. They found a bath full of water, as I said, and a gift box that contained several items, videos, presumably VHS videos, I think, books, photographs, and a note. And the note simply read, "I love you." Now, it was addressed to and later passed on to Richie's former girlfriend, Jo. It was wrapped like a present. The box was decorated with literary quotes and a collage of cryptic photographs, which included everything from cartoon characters to decaying mansions. Now, that's really strange. They found receipts of things that Richie had bought. He'd spent £9.60 at a Surrey printer's. Would that have paid for some sort of the photographic decorations on the box, perhaps? Is that why he'd been to this printer's? And if so, how long had he been planning to leave this gift for his ex-girlfriend? That leads you to believe that this had been something he'd been planning. 24 hours after Richie goes missing, the band's manager, Martin Hall, reports him missing. So the police were given access to Richie's contacts, perhaps a phone book. Back in the day, a lot of us had phone books, weirdly, 6 years ago, where we'd write everybody's phone numbers down in. All of Richie's contacts were contacted, spoken to, no one had heard from him. So in the aftermath of Richie's disappearance, the other band member, James, does fly to the States to continue to do the promotion for the band. Now, the Cardiff Police then realised that the police in London realised that Cardiff is the last place Richie's been seen or known to be in. So the Cardiff Police released a statement, and I'd just like to read that statement to you. Police are anxious to trace Richard James Edwards, a member of the pop group the Manic Street Preachers, who has been missing from the London area since Wednesday, the 1st of February 1995. When he was seen leaving the London Embassy Hotel at 7 a.m. It is known that on the same day he visited his home in the Cardiff area and is believed to have been in possession of his silver Vauxhall Cavalier motorcar, registration number L519HKX. Richard's family, band members and friends are concerned for his safety and welfare and stress that no pressure will be put on him to return if he does not wish to do so. They stress that his privacy will be respected at all times. Police are asking anyone who has seen Richard, knows of his whereabouts, or have seen his car to contact them at Cardiff Central Police Station. Now, if anyone out here has got any information on that, I can give you the number for Cardiff Police, and that is 0222 222 111. Or you could go online and look up a number for them if you'd like to look up a different number than the one I'm giving you. Or if you'd like to do this anonymously and you've got some information about Richie Edwards' disappearance, please contact Crime Stoppers. You can report crimes anonymously, give any information that you've got, and it would be so gratefully welcomed by Richie's family to know what happened to him. There's something further that I just want to point out about the car park attendant that found Richie's car. There's differing reports of the date that they found Richie's car. There is one out there that says they found it on the 15th, but there's also another report that says they found it on the 17th. But whether it was the 15th or the 17th, they're definitely sure, the car park attendant, that Richie's car was abandoned or left there on Valentine's Day, which is the 14th of February. So I don't think we can ever be sure exactly which day, whether it was the 15th or the 17th, that they noticed the car has been abandoned, but it was certainly left there on the 14th of February 1995. Now, something to note that's very sad about what was left in Richie's car when it was found abandoned is there was a load of family photographs that he'd taken himself just after the last Christmas period. I'm guessing that would have been the Christmas of 1994, the Christmas before the year that he disappears. That's really heartbreaking, but the only good thing about it is at least his family were able to get the photos back as some sort of memento as the last Christmas that they ever spent with their loved one, Richie. So as I said before, guys, if you have any information about the whereabouts of Richey Edwards, if you know anything about his disappearance, please contact the Cardiff Police. If not, Crime Stoppers. I know it's a very cold case. I know that 1995 is a long time ago. Some of my viewers might not have even been born then. My younger brother was only born in 1994, so it is a very long time ago. But I really hope that one day this case could be solved. I hope that Richie could be found alive, even if he is living his best life somewhere abroad, perhaps in Israel. At least he'd be alive. That's got to be better for his family than thinking that he ended his own life. Well, anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments below if you've heard of this case. Are you aware of the Manic Street Preachers, especially if you don't live in the UK or you're not from England or Wales or Scotland or Ireland? If you live in Europe or in America or anywhere else in the world, I'd love to know what you think about the case. Do you think Richie took his own life? Do you think he disappeared on purpose? Do you think he could have met harm and that foul play is involved here? What do you think? I love knowing your comments, so pop them below. And as always, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But anyway, guys, I hope you're all well. I hope you're staying safe. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. I really appreciate all of you guys. As I said, I always love knowing your thoughts and views on these cases. If you haven't already and you've enjoyed my video today, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you know anybody else that likes true crime content, I also do body language and statement analysis as well as my true crime videos, which are all based mostly on true crime cases, sometimes on celebrities, sometimes on members of the royal family. Well, anyway, guys, I'll be back very soon with another true crime video. You all take care of yourselves and stay safe, and I'll be back very soon. Bye bye for now.